Boom! The Atlanta Falcons just traded for a pass rusher, and it's Matt Judon.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. These sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. the iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And I appreciate each and every one of you that is in every day of this pod who makes it your first listen or first watch each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is follow or subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So clearly, guys, you could tell I'm a little out of it because I'm reacting to this live. I've basically had no prep. This is just basically me giving you my thoughts as I'm processing this huge trade. But we are talking about the Atlanta Falcons made a trade. There may be some pauses as I have to go back and check Twitter to see if anything other has come out in the last few minutes, because literally this happened in the last 30 minutes as I'm recording this. I had already recorded an episode ready to be uploaded and air tonight, talking about Drake London and his big day of practice and the Falcons' offensive explosiveness and should they play guys in the preseason and whether Brandon Dorlus is going to help, solve their problems at edge rusher if he gets more looks there, all that stuff. And we'll probably air that later tonight on YouTube and it'll still be on your audio feeds. But, that went out the window immediately with this Matt Judon trade. So from what I gather in the last 30 minutes, and again, this may be still a developing story as I check Twitter, but basically the Falcons gave up a third-round pick for New England Patriots outside linebacker Matt Judon, and the 2025 third-round pick, I think someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or in the chat. But didn't I say on yesterday's episode when we were talking about the possibility of a Matt Judon trade, we talked about how that was more plausible than a Hassan Reddick trade. And I think I said the max compensation I would give was $20 million in a third round pick, or was a second round pick? I can't remember what it was. So if the Falcons gave up a third round pick, that's fine. Again, maybe I said something differently yesterday, but I'm pretty sure that I said a third round pick is fine with what we're doing. And on that episode, I kind of expressed I'm not as big a fan of Matt Judon as I am Hassan Reddick, just because I feel like Matt Judon, has kind of padded his sack totals a little bit with some cleanup sacks and whatnot, and a lot of sort of coverage things and all the things that the Patriots do. But still, regardless of that, he is a massive upgrade to what the Atlanta Falcons are bringing to the table. He's had a bunch of sacks these last couple of years in New England, had his best years in New England. I know Falcon fans are very familiar with one particular game that Matt Judon had since he's been a New England Patriots, which was a couple of years ago, that Thursday night game in 2021, where he was whooping up a little bit on Caleb McGarry in that game, had two very good reps and pressures or sacks or whatever it was against Caleb McGarry. And so the Falcons are getting again, is he a Batman type of pass rusher in terms of what he can bring to the table? Sure. He's definitely much closer of a Batman than the Falcons have had in a long time. But I would tend to look at Matt Judon as more of a Nightwing, a high-end Robin in the sense. But that's probably not fair. Again, close enough. Close enough is basically what I'm sitting here saying. And I think I said on yesterday's episode, he's a very reliable pressure guy. Even if he doesn't get necessarily as many cleanup sacks, I think in Atlanta as he has gotten in New England, he's still probably going to be a reliable 8+ sack guy, potentially a double-digit sack guy. So that is, if that ain't Batman, that's pretty darn close as far as we're concerned. So definitely a guy that can be the sort of lead pass rusher for this Falcons pass rush, give us a real threat that defenses have to worry about. And I guess that's probably the defining thing. Like, our defense is going to be like, we have to double team this guy every single time on the field. Probably not like a true Batman would be, but he's certainly a guy that is going to command attention from defensive or defenses. Why did I say defenses? Again, I'm figuring this stuff all out, guys. Offenses have to worry about him and adjust their protections, and getting another sort of proven veteran player in here like we had last year with Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell, and a big reason why that Falcons pass rush was, for the first time in 20 years, got 40 plus sacks in the season. And I think, this is where what we're talking about, where we talked about how the Falcons lost 12 or 13 sacks from Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree, only really gained one back by signing James Smith-Williams. And, I know Matt Judon didn't have, I think he had like 4 sacks last year in like 4 games, but the previous year, I think he had like 12 sacks. I got to double check again. We're reacting to this live, but what was Matt Judon's sack total in his last full healthy season in 2022? 15 and a half sacks. The previous year, he had 12 and a half sacks in 2 Pro Bowl years. And then the 2 previous years in Baltimore was a Pro Bowler with 6 sacks in 2020, 9.5 sacks in 2019. So regardless of where I would stack him in terms of, is he that, Bruce Wayne Batman, or is he that, Dick Grayson Nightwing, or whatever the case may be, very productive player, 60 plus pressures, both in 21 and 22. So that to me is really the indicator that you're getting a productive player and not just a guy that is purely a cleanup sack guy, as I may have portrayed. Forget all that stuff. No, Matt Judon is going to get 15 sacks this upcoming season with the Atlanta Falcons. But basically what I'm sitting here saying, going back, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, guys, but as I react to this, but basically we lost 12 sacks net from Calais Campbell, and theoretically a healthy Matt Judon is going to make up that difference. So this team should be back theoretically at 40 plus sacks because of this one addition. And that was the big thing with the frustration with the Atlanta Falcons and their decision to kind of punt at edge and just kind of roll with some young guys and hope some young guys would step up. It's like, we have, as Falcon fans, have experienced this for decades, guys, in terms of this not having a pass rush. And it was like last year was the first time we took real progress in a long time in terms of building a pass rush. And the idea of going back and regressing back to being a team that may not eclipse 30 sacks in a season, which has been the norm for this team for basically the last 7 years, was just a non-starter for us. And it was so frustrating to see the team, sort of punt at this position. And so it's so, the opposite of frustrating, incredible that the team has gotten off their butt and finally shaken off the complacent attitude that they've been having for the last 5 months, and being like, let's actually go out and solve this problem, and being able to land a player of Matt Judon's caliber for a 3rd round pick. The only knock on Matt Judon is the age, right? He's going to turn 32 tomorrow. And presumably the Falcons are going to have to give him a contract extension. That's the reason why the Patriots traded him, not because he's a bad player, but the Patriots, he wants a new contract. The Patriots are willing to give out a bunch of new contracts to several other players. And they were like, you're getting close to the end of the line. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Are you getting 1 or 2 more sort of peak years of high-end Matt Judon play before things might start to take a downturn at age 33, 34, 35, where we don't necessarily see a lot of guys maintain a high level of play after a certain point. And so that gets us to what I want to get to next on the pod, which is sort of speculating live on what sort of contracts we might be looking at in terms of the price range of Matt Judon, because I think that is definitely something that will be coming with a new contract from Matt Judon, and we'll break that down as we continue today's live Locked On Falcons breaking podcast extravaganza. But today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And what are your self-care non-negotiables when your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and so much more? It's easy to let your priorities slip. It's hard to make time for things, even things that we know make us happy. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Therapy has taught me positive coping skills like you can only control what you can control, which I use anytime the Falcons are rumored to be going after some high price free agent, can't control it, but I deal with that the best way I can thanks to therapy like BetterHelp. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So let's get into speculation territory, talking about Matt Judon's contract, right? And I speculated on this on yesterday's episode, again, sort of talking like my starting point for a negotiation with Matt Judon, maybe like $15 million a year. And we probably will be willing to go up to, I don't know, 20 something million dollars a year. Because again, beggars cannot be choosers. And basically the Falcons are basically telling us, hey, we got to pay this man a lot of money on a 2, 3, or however many year extension for Matt Judon to get those max years that we're expecting from him. And again, hoping for at least 2 more good years for Matt Judon. Anything after that, I think, is gravy at that point in time. But for this sort of 2-year window that you have, presumably with Kirk Cousins, where you want to maximize this window, this 2-year window that you potentially have with Jake Matthews, another high-end veteran, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata as well, even Jesse Bates, as young as Jesse Bates is, like 26, 27. Safeties aren't necessarily players that are known for long-term. So you really want to get the most out of these next 2 years with Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, so many other sort of high-end players on this roster. Again, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan. The next 2 years are only really the time that you're guaranteed to have all of those guys on the team. So you want to maximize that. So getting Matt Judon locked up, I think, for at least the next 2 years, it certainly makes a ton of sense for the Atlanta Falcons. And let's throw up the top edge rushers currently in terms of contracts over at overthecap.com. And you can see at the bottom of your screen, Matt Judon all the way down there, making $11.25 million a year on his last 2-year extension. This is the final year of that $14 million guaranteed. And certainly based off of the production that he had in the 2 previous years, combining for 28 sacks, you probably imagine Matt Judon feels like he's very much underpaid based off of his production in recent years. As you can tell, looking at your screen, a bunch of guys in their mid to late 20s near the top of the market. But, where does Matt Judon sort of fit in? You can sort of see, if you can, sort of zoom in, you can see sort of Khalil Mack around the same age, making about $19 million a year. Von Miller a little bit higher than that, around $35 million a year. Then you get some 30-year-olds like Trey Hendrickson and Daniil Hunter that are in the 20s plus. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson is looking for a new deal as well. Daniil Hunter just got that from the Texans this offseason. So, Matt Judon certainly due for a pay increase, and given the Falcons sort of, again, I feel like $15 million is well worth it for Matt Judon, potentially more if you can get into that $19-20 million range. Again, whether, again, we can debate all day long on whether Matt Judon is exactly worth $17.7 million or 21 point, who cares? Basically, the Falcons are basically telling us we're going to pay him whatever we need to pay him in order to make him happy so that he can get after the quarterbacks that so few people in Atlanta have been able to get after. So peruse that list as you will. Let me know in the chat or leave a comment telling me what you think his price tag should be. Are you comfortable with paying him $20 million? Are you comfortable with paying him more than $20 million? Do you want to get him on a little bit under that? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the chat in terms of what you think Matt Judon's price tag. But I think that's going to be the key for the Falcons, is sort of getting him enough money and enough guaranteed money. And again, that number, again, and you look at the guarantees on like Khalil Mack or whatever, that's going to be to me the biggest negotiating question with Matt Judon, because Khalil Mack got $19 million on him, renegotiated deal with the Chargers this offseason. And so, like, are you going to give him multiple years of guarantees, or are you just going to sort of guarantee the next year with Matt Judon? And he already had like whatever his price tag, how much guaranteed money did he have left on this contract this year? None, right? So, is Matt Judon just content to just have, like, so let's say, if we give him, let's say, hypothetically, we're giving him a 2-year, $19 million a year extension, do you give him the full 38 guaranteed, or do you just give him like kind of 19 million guaranteed? And is that enough for Matt Judon to just basically have one guaranteed season, and maybe you structure it where it's harder to get out of the contract after 1 year, or does he get 2 years of guarantees? It's kind of similar to the kind of Kirk Cousins negotiation where Kirk is like, if he has the option, if he has no other options, he'll take a 1 year contract from the Vikings. But if he has the option to get 2+ years guaranteed, he'll take that elsewhere. And that's what landed Kirk here in Atlanta. And that's going to be sort of a key negotiating point for this Matt Judon deal. But I think it's inevitable that we will get a contract extension worked out shortly. It'll be interesting to sort of see how this potentially affects the AJ Terrell contract extension that we're hoping to see come soon before the season starts, because if it doesn't happen before the season starts, it's unlikely to happen during the season. And then if it doesn't happen during the season, it's almost certainly, well, I mean, we'll see. This is going to be hard to get it done after the season with AJ Terrell, and then you're forced to tag him, and that's a whole set of circumstances. So that's going to be an interesting wrinkle when it comes to this. But one would love to imagine a scenario where in the next, let's say, 72 plus to 96 hours, that the Falcons announce 2 big time extensions for roughly $19 or $20 million a year, if you ask me. So we'll see how that goes for the Atlanta Falcons. But I think, somewhere in that sort of $19-20 million range makes sense. If the Falcons go higher than that, then so be it. That's what they got to do. That's the price of doing business. If they can get him for less than like 19, 18, somewhere in the $17-16 million range, that to me is a bargain at this point in time. So we'll see on that front. No word yet on sort of what the timetable is on the negotiation, but we'll probably get something in the next couple of days on that one. So exciting time for Matt Judon and what he's going to bring to this Falcons defense, a difference maker on the outside. Dean Pease knows this guy. And so we'll talk a little bit more about what he's going to bring as we wrap up today's episode. And this will be an opportunity for those of you watching live on YouTube to get in the chat and sound off, and we'll react to some of the things that you have to say about this move to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So summertime is great for a lot of things, and sometimes it's not great for the sports, but today is a great sports day if you are an Atlanta Falcon fan. And FanDuel, why not ride that wave by going over to FanDuel? We're going to hook up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just head over to FanDuel.com and you can make the most out of your summer. And if you're feeling particularly good about the Falcons' chances this year, their over-under win totals, right? Head on over to FanDuel. If you feel good about, hey, why not head on over there, check out that week 1 line, because it might move now that the Falcons have added Matt Judon. So go check it out over at FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel also, not only for upcoming football, but we got NBA, NHL, right? We got ongoing baseball stuff, soccer is going on and all that stuff. So FanDuel, you can find anything you want. So head on over to FanDuel.com to make the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So guys, I still reacting to this. We'll see if the Falcons can land someone like Justin Simmons as well. Like, this will be the greatest August ever in the history of Atlanta Falcons football if they could land 2 high-level veterans like Matt Judon and Justin Simmons. We're going to have to get some moves on the contract negotiation front, because the Falcons are going to have to move some money around in order to absorb Matt Judon's contract before signing him to an extension. So we'll probably get something announced on that front as well. But just scrolling through you guys in the chat to see what you have to say. Thomas Clark says, what does this mean for Justin Simmons? Are we still able to sign? I mean, theoretically, sure. There's nothing, stopping the Falcons from signing both of these players. They have to move some money around in order to make it happen, but there's not really that many obstacles if they want to. It's easy for teams to restructure contracts, because there's basically clauses built into player contracts that allow them to just basically restructure. You don't have to call Grady Jarrett and say, we're restructuring your contract. They can just do it on their own. And then, you probably want to call him to give him a heads up so that he knows. But like, you don't have to do it. Basically, you don't have to get him to agree to a restructure, generally speaking, before you can actually restructure. So yeah, as Eric Brantley says, we'll have to move money around either way. So Alan Davidson says, I am so stoked about this. I pray we also get Simmons thing done. I agree with you. Yeah, man, that would be huge. That would be huge for the Falcons to get both Matt Judon and Isaiah Simmons. You can imagine now the situation where you have two playmaking safeties on the back end. That's going to increase your ability to generate those explosive plays for the defense, which we call turnovers, right? Those are explosive plays for the defense because you're getting positive field. You pick off a pass, you set up your offense at the 48-yard line. It's really no different than if the offense started the ball at the 25 and generated a 27-yard play to get to the 48-yard line. That's basically what turnovers are, just explosive plays for the defense that set the offense. So if you can do that on the back end with Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates out there, being non-monogamous safeties cheating all the time, and then you have that reliable pressure with Matt Judon, you don't have to rely so much on the blitzes and whatnot that it looked like the Falcons were going to have to heavily rely on. That's going to be a huge boost to this defense. So let's see what else we got. Robert Blackman says, I am fine with the trade. Well, appreciate it, Robert, that he got your approval on that trade. Judon is a beast from Archangel. He says, Judon is a beast. You said the Falcons wouldn't do nada. Look, was I wrong, Archangel? For 5 months, I was 100% right on the Falcons doing nada. But basically, I said yesterday that there was a better chance. It was more realistic that the Falcons would trade for Judon than necessarily Hassan Reddick. I almost blinked on Hassan. Who cares about Hassan Reddick anymore at this point in time? Grady Onyemata from Rating Gray says, Grady Onyemata and Judon is the best pass rush we've had in so long. Yes, that is true, right? When we've had a threesome like that, it's the last time I can think of us having a threesome like that on that level. You have to go back to 2006 when we had Abraham, Kearney, and Rod Coleman. And unfortunately, injuries kind of derailed that group from being able to, hang out together. Michael says Grady finally has help. Fire emojis. Yes, we've been, trying to get Grady to go out on a good note. Right? Yeah, it's just like this is the only thing I ask for the Falcons. It's just do my guy Grady Jarrett a solid at this point in time. Ant-Man says, would you consider Jesse Bates as Batman or Nightwing? If we're talking about, like, what are we talking about? The combination of him and Justin Simmons or whatever? Who's the Batman? Who's the Nightwing? Who's the Robin? Jesse Bates. In a vacuum, I would probably go with Justin Simmons, but just because Jesse Bates is on this team and has been on this team and is a leader on this team, like, he's the Batman. Like, Justin has to get on his page. But for anybody else, it's not really a conversation for anybody else, right? Yeah, Jesse Bates is definitely a Batman. It's only really Justin Simmons that could theoretically make him not a Batman, and when that comes. So let's see what else. Chris Weston says Judon is a B+ at best, but he's Nightwing. Okay, that's fair. Like, that's generally how I kind of feel about it. Like, I think I tend to see him more as a B+ than an A- sort of pass rusher, that the high-end guys that typically when you see a guy that gets 12, 15 sacks as Judon got in 21 and 22, like, typically you think of that guy, that's an A-level pass rusher. And I tend to see Judon more as a B+. I think that's fair, Chris, in that regard. But again, look, B+ is way better than what were we dealing with? I know a lot of people were thinking Arnold Ebiketie was going to be a B+. I've been telling people all season, like, I would pump the brakes on that. What were we, best case scenario for Arnold Ebiketie at this point in time? C+, maybe. So like B+ is way better. So we'll take it. We'll take that all day. And again, if we have to pay A+ money to a B+ player, then we'll take that all day. Because again, what else are we going to do? So, Judon is a big missing piece for Judon. Daily Gifts Forever says that. Okay. Don't know what that means, but thanks for the input. Dave Joseph says, come on, A. Freeman. We definitely needed someone on the edge. What you think about the linebacker Story Jackson? I don't know nothing about Story Jackson. And frankly, I don't care about no stinking Story Jackson. He played in the XFL or UFL or whatever it is. I don't care. Don't give two things about about to get fired on this show. Dave, you're trying to get me fired on the show. So what? All right. Who restructured? Robert Blackman asked. Okay, I can't click on it. Robert Blackman asked who restructured the deal. We'll find out, right? It's probably most likely to be, I think the Falcons, I could understand why the Falcons would be reluctant to touch Jake and Grady and Kirk's deals because they're older players and you want to have that off ramp at some point and you don't want to push that back. Chris Lindstrom is the most obvious candidate to restructure just because Chris Lindstrom's not going anywhere for a long time. Or at least hopefully he's not going anywhere for a long time. And then after him, off the top of my head, I'm blanking on who. Like I know Jake, Grady, and Lindstrom were the three guys that we talked about this offseason as all guys that you could free up at least like $7 or $9 million between each one of those guys in restructuring them. So they only needed 3 to absorb Judon's contract because his base salary is like $6.5 million. They already had 3. So basically you just needed 4. So I think Lindstrom was like 7 or 9. I can't remember off the top of my head. So to me, it makes, from my perspective, it makes the most sense to restructure Lindstrom's contract and get the $7 million and then use that and then give Judon a new contract. And then maybe his cap hit goes up from 6.5 to like 8 or 9 or something like that. So you're going to need all 7 of that cap space. So we'll see what the Falcons do. But that's just my sort of general feeling on it. So Milla says, Pats fans here, we love Judon, amazing talent, great personality. Fans will love him. Well, appreciate the insight, Milla. Now get out. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, guys. I'm giddy at this point in time. I'm still reacting to this whole thing. So let's see. Let's see if we can get one more in here before we wrap this thing up. So let me scroll all the way down. What are you guys saying? Kenneth Dior Productions. Can we still get Reddick? Probably not. I mean, getting Reddick was already virtually, I'm not going to say impossible, but very unlikely. And, yeah, so I don't think you're going to get that. So, Kenneth asks, are we done with the moves? Hopefully not. Again, the Falcons are going to do all the moves that they should have been doing in March and April in August. And we'll take it. Again, beggars can't be choosers, as we say with the Falcons, man. When with this whole complacency thing that they just love doing, like, we don't need to worry about the pass rush. We don't need to worry about our secondary. We don't need to worry about anything. We just got Kirk Cousins. He's going to solve all our problems. And it's like, man, and I don't think that's wrong, but it's just like, as a Falcon fan that has lived in that world of the Falcons, just like, what? Like, we don't need to address our issues. We just need to go out there and sign James Carpenter and Jamon Brown. And that's going to solve our offensive line needs and then not have to worry about anything else. Oh, we'll spend big money on 2 run-stopping D tackles like Tyson Jackson and Paul Soliai and not worry about our edge rush or anything like that or anything else with our team or all those things. As a Falcon fan, those choices of just like, we just got to solve one problem are always a problem for me because, like, again, I watch the team every week and I go, and again, it's going to sound harsh, guys. Call me Mr. Drew or whatever, but it's like, you're not that good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I watch you guys every single week and you're not as good as you think you are. And you haven't been as good as you think you are for 7 years. I wonder, that's an interesting number. What happened 7 years ago? The last time the Falcons made the playoff, so like, that's why I get so frustrated with it. Cause it's just like, it would be different if this team had consistently sustained success in that time. And we'd be like, oh, just nitpicking, which it was like when I used to talk about this back in like 2013 and 2014, it was like, oh, you're just nitpicking. The team has come off like 5 consecutive winning seasons. And it was relatively thin, but now it's like, what are we doing here? Like, you haven't had a winning season in 7 years. Like, what are we sitting here doing this thing? So that's why I get so fired up about it, guys. Cause it's just like, this seems so stupid. in 2024. It seemed less stupid in 2014. It seems incredibly stupid in 2024. So we'll see what the Falcons wind up doing later this week, but I'm going to leave it there, guys, as I sit here and marinate on this trade. And we'll see what the Falcons do, what money they move around, what other moves may be on the horizon. I feel like this move, at least theoretically, again, if you're wondering about the Justin Simmons things, this feels like, hey, if Justin needs a thing to entice him to come to Atlanta to suggest that, hey, we are a contending team, Justin, you'll be able to play in your not only your first playoff game, but just maybe a Super Bowl team again. Whether Matt Judon's going to put you over the top to be a Super Bowl team, hey, we can dream. It's August 14th. We'll be having a very different conversation probably on December 14th, but it's August 14th, so we can dream. If you're trying to entice Justin Simmons to come to town and choose us over another team like, that other team in the state of Louisiana, hey, I think this is a great move for the Falcons. So we'll see if the Falcons can capitalize on this. That's going to do it for us, guys. Later tonight, you'll have an episode talking about practice and Drake London and explosive offense and all those things and why Brandon Dorlus is not going to solve the problems of the Falcons at edge rusher. That's going to age beautifully now. And so check that out. You'll have 2 episodes coming your way on the audio platform. So continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen on YouTube or on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And if you're looking for how this is going to impact the New England Patriots and what they think, check out Locked On Patriots. I'm sure they have the opposite angle on this one. So, guys, I hope you have a great night. That is going to do it for us here on today's illustrious podcast. And, check out all the other shows, Locked On Fantasy, Locked On Sports Atlanta. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.